Hi, welcome to session 4 of the core curriculum for world changers and history makers. Now, this session, I want to look at a changing church. Now, I observed the church under pressure, people putting it under pressure, people's interpretation of what the church is under pressure. And I'm not going to spend too much time addressing that. What I really want to do is address the changes that I actually observe happening, particularly within the stream that I'm a part of. But it's also a hunger actually outside of my immediate stream to see these kind of changes. When you look at the quadrants, which of course by now you're used to this method for me, especially these first two, I've put first next to them. And I just want to give a little bit of background to that. You see, I'm not saying that, for instance, when it comes to the top right, we've lost pastoral completely and we're all apostolic. It's a change of the first lens that we use to view things through. And what I'm suggesting is that we've shifted from a pastoral first to an apostolic first. That's not saying that we're not pastoral. A couple of places that I get real encouragement to teach in this way. One is C.S. Lewis, who said, if you put second things first, you get neither first nor second. But if you put first things first, you get first and second. And of course, Jesus himself, who said, seek first the kingdom, and all these things will be added unto you. So I'm really leaning on those two people, C.S. Lewis and Jesus, pretty good combination, just to talk through this subject. So a changing church. And this first one, I've already said, pastoral first to apostolic first. And Jesus is the great shepherd, so don't worry, we're going to still have the pastoral in there. But what does this really mean? Well, for me, what it means is that we've shifted from the first lens of gathering people and pastoring people, and we've changed that first lens to the first lens of being apostolic. And apostolic is one of those words that can very easily be misunderstood, and depending on our history and our past, we might have different perceptions of it. For me though, the apostolic is that whenever I come under the teaching or an influence of an apostle, I am apostolic. Now, you might go, I haven't found my apostle on earth. Well, don't worry about that, because Jesus is the first apostle. And Jesus actually, he said this, as the Father sent me, and the word sent there in Greek is apostolos, as the Father apostolosed me, if I can put it that way, so I apostolos you. And he was speaking to us. We're all the sent ones. We've been sent from heaven to earth, to make earth actually like heaven. That's the assignment. Now, sometimes we get sent to different places. But actually, the first place of sending that I need to experience is inside. Being sent is an inside job. And so I go along to my church community on a Sunday, and by Monday morning, I am sent. I'm sent to the office I work in. I'm sent to the hospital I work in. Being sent is an inside job. Being sent is saying, I am embracing the commission of Jesus Christ, that the Father sent him, and so Jesus sends us. And so the apostolic, when we have an apostolic mindset, we're not thinking as much as we did in the pastoral of gathering, protecting, creating a safe environment. Now, those things are still important, but what we're saying is, no, we have an apostolic mindset. We are gathering for the purpose of sending, for the purpose of transforming. And now, if you start to connect this to what I've already been talking about, a world in change and a generation that wants to make a difference, now we see that there's an immediate fit for the church. A changing church from pastoral, gathering, being famous for the number we gather, to a church which is famous for the number that are sent. Even if they're sent to the town that we live in, because they know that they are sent on an assignment to bring transformation. And of course, this changes things. This changes the things that we measure. This changes the things that we focus on first. And I would say, linked to this, this is where we see the schools of ministry coming in, because the apostolic is equipping people to be sent to make a difference, to bring transformation, bringing heaven to earth. So this is a huge change, and I hope you can see it fits with a world in change, and it fits with the generations that are alive, and it actually is really a response to what time it is, because things have changed. We don't all live in small villages and all go to church. Our church isn't our only community, so there are changes. So pastoral first to apostolic first. Do we still pastor? Yes, we do. Is the church still a place where the hurting, the broken, the wounded can come and be healed up? Yes, it is. Is the church still a place where we have family and community? Yes, it is. But we are recognizing that it is a place that brings heaven to earth, and through family expands the influence of King Jesus, which is where we then shift to this second quadrant of a church first to kingdom first. The beautiful truth, that Jesus said, the kingdom's at hand, and he came with the kingdom of heaven. He said, seek first the kingdom. I love the phrase, I think Chris Valentin probably said it first in my earshot for definite. He said, not all of the kingdom's in the church, but all of the church is in the kingdom. So put kingdom first, you still got the church. But this is about expanding the influence of King Jesus to every corner of this wonderful and beautiful planet, to every sphere, every geographic location. So we shift again, and again you can see this fits. This fits with our changing world. The church is shifting. There's this shifting, this changing taking place. We're not just content with church. And actually, most of people's complaints and criticisms and rejection, even putting it as strongly as that, of the church, is typically a rejection of a program-oriented church instead of a church that brings heaven to earth and trains and equips and sends people to transform the world. So it's not really a rejection of the church. It's just when the church gets stuck and it becomes program oriented and it's not being what the church is meant to be. I like to think of the church as God's local government office in a region, and that church is there to influence and affect and transform every area of that society and community. So we've got a pastoral first to an apostolic first, and we've got a church first to a kingdom first, and that's really exciting. And again, it fits, you see, because there's a changing world out there. There's a world with opportunity, a world in change, a world with access to creativity and geopolitical shifts. So what we're seeing is a church which is actually shifting, and it's really, really in line with what's happening in the world. And then down here, I've got big church to big people. I think, again, it was Bill Johnson that I heard coin this phrase first, and I love it. It really is beautiful. Now, let me remind you, you put second things first, you get neither first nor second. You put first things first, you get first and second. So this isn't, we're not going to have big churches. This is, but we are going to have big people first. Chris Valentin's book, Heavy Rain, he details some evidence there that big churches don't change cities, but big people do. Big people change issues. That's where the Wilberforces come from. A big person who changed an issue and abolished slavery. Big people do that. And our world needs big people. See, world changers and history makers are not kind of organizations, they're people. And that's what this is about. This is about changing the world through raising up world changers and history makers. And we're seeing this emphasis. You see, what we've typically done is we've gone to church and we've been a part of building the church. Nothing wrong with that. But what the shift is now to, no, we go to church for the church to help build us. Now, we're still going to have the church, but it builds us to be big people. We're going to look at that in a little bit more detail about what a big person is, because it's a crucial piece of this. But what you'll also see here, this is where some of the inner healing, this is where the father heart, this is where the identity is related to. And it comes in lots of places, but it's really important here because, again, we see that something's happening in the church, a movement around inner healing, father heart, sonship, and identity, and it fits a moment in history. My point would be that these things aren't isolated, they're converging for such a time as this. So, and then finally here we've got a shift from control to freedom. This actually is related to all of these, in actual fact. Of course, the Bible says it very clearly. It was for freedom that Christ has set us free. It seems like it might have taken us rather a long time to work out what that means. Freedom for me also means empowering. We've shifted from more the controlling, managed environment to an empowering freedom environment. Vital. You see, the pastoral tended to be a little bit more managed, a little bit more controlled, a little bit more wanting to know where everyone was and what they were doing. The apostolic, no, that's about sending, releasing, empowering, trusting people, believing in people that are out there and in reality spending more time out there in the world than they are in church. So they need to be empowered and trusted to be the world changers that God wants them to be. And we see again the control to freedom shift is evident here when we go from church to kingdom. Some of that, I believe, is very much an internal freedom, an empowering, a discovering what's beautiful to us, a discovering what we love, and having a sense of freedom to go and pursue that. Not feeling that we have to conform to an image that is put on us of, oh, that's what a good Christian looks like. They do these kind of careers. No, we need Christians in every sphere. We need people who are making, computer games that are believers who aren't just making Christian computer games. We need to touch and saturate every area of our world. And so the control to freedom shift actually is there. And again, it is with the church. If we're constantly going to church to help build the church, we're kind of fitting into a mold, into a model. We're conforming. But if we're going to church to be released, to be big people, then we need to have that sense of being empowered. These are changes that are happening in the church. They're going to require different leaders, different models of leadership, different cultures. The part of the World Changers and History Makers training, which will really emphasize a lot of this, is when I teach the church leaders in the School of Practical and Supernatural Revival Leadership, where I'll spend a lot of time on culture, a lot of time on how do you actually build the apostolic, and what is it anyway? How do you pursue kingdom? How do you raise up big people? And how do you create a culture of empowerment and freedom? And one of the keys there is you can only empower if you have power to give away. So raising up leaders who know that they have power to give away. And some of that is simple things like encouragement. Because encouragement says, I've got courage to give away. I can encourage you. I can tell you that I had courage in a situation and I'm giving it to you for yours. So here we have a changing church. Jesus said he'd build his church. And I love that. I really do love that. He said, I will build my church. Actually, I think it's only one verse later. He says, the Father gives you the keys to the kingdom. And it's a beautiful picture that Jesus said he'd build his church, but he'd give us the keys to the kingdom. So I want to just encourage you that you might be feeling some shifts and some changes. Perhaps you're a church leader or a part of a church leadership team watching this, and you've been feeling some of these shifts and these challenges, and you didn't know where they fitted in. Well, I want to tell you, they fit right in with this moment in history. This is what our world needs. Our world needs a church that is sending people. This world needs a church that has a kingdom focus, a kingdom emphasis. And in order to achieve that, it needs big people. It needs to be have a church which is raising up big people who are able to go and do the stuff and bring about the change, grab the opportunities, be creative, take their place in government. And of course, all of that requires that we shift from that sense of being managed and controlled to being empowered and being free to be who God created us to be. And all of this fits into exactly what I've been talking about. My challenge with, if you're a church leader, it's to look at this and go, well, yeah, that's the one that really for me is the real emphasis right now. And I'd say, well, what are you going to do then? What are you going to do about that? Maybe what are you going to study, or what aspect of your culture are you going to pursue? But for others, I just want to encourage you to look at this with hope and enthusiasm and encouragement, and recognize, perhaps you're a world changer waiting to happen. You've got dreams and ideas of things that you're going to do in the world. I want to tell you, this is the moment to really engage with a changing church and to recognize that the church is changing in a way that is going to help you and empower you and inspire you and enable you to do what you were born to do and what is really stirring up inside of you. So this, I believe, it's the church's time. Yes, an apostolic church. Yes, a kingdom church. Yes, a church that raises big people. And yes, an empowered and a free church. But this isn't a time to abandon the church. This is the time to really get behind the church of Jesus Christ. Discover the church that Jesus is building and play your part in helping to be a part of that. So I just want to encourage you. It's the church's time.